Hey everybody, happy Wine Wednesday, and for those of you who had just learned to watch us on Thursday mornings, happy Thirsty Thursday.
Oh yeah. There you go. Got to a morning start. I like
Right?
it. Let's get this day off to a good start. I got the corkscrew ready. Let's get started.
All right.
Talking about one of my favorite subjects this week. I'm so happy to have these back.
Wine?
Well,
Just
Grenache.
as a general?
How's that?
Grenache. We have been on a roll of talking about great new wines that have come in from the Rhone Valley. So I'm actually really excited to kind of make a little segue into some Spanish wine because we've got an awesome Spanish Garnacha that comes in at some pretty spectacular price points. Really cool story behind them too.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say and so little time to do it this morning, but this is, for me, one of the most interesting projects in all of Spain. We're starting on the whites, but I'm going to talk about the reds first, just because what these guys do with Grenache is really quite special. The foresight is even hard to fathom. I mean, you have a Spanish doctor in 1923 who went, a day's, ride, not drive, ride, out into the mountains and just found this, this vineyard. Well, it wasn't a vineyard yet. It was just a wild land at 700 meters above altitude of this decomposed granite sites that at the time had, he was kind of uncovering the land and cutting down, the shrubs, and he's finding these big boulders that were carved into bears because the ground used to be an old, Celt hunting ground. So if that's not an interesting enough start, I don't know what is.
Yeah, the Celtic history is really interesting, and they carved these bears into the stone to represent the goddess of the hunt and kind of pay homage to that. So that's why you see the little the girl riding the bear.
All coming together.
Keeping all the history there.
I just don't know how in 1923 somebody figured out that Grenache was going to be like the grape to grow in the Sierra de Credos Mountains, which would have been the middle of nowhere back then. It's still the middle of nowhere. There were no vines planted there. There was no viticulture going on. And then sadly, right after he planted his vineyards, Spanish Civil War breaks out.
I know.
Bad stroke of luck.
He really didn't get to foresee all of what the potential had to offer and where this was going to go, but luckily his great-grandchildren did, and they have since stepped in to take over. And luckily for them, a lot of these old original Grenache vines were still there, and they're still growing, and so now we have fantastic old wines coming to us at spectacular price points.
Yeah, and it's funny because, after these wines started to get made in 2006, other people figured out that this was a great place to grow Grenache. So people followed suit and started planting vines up there, but they already kind of had like the prime spots. They had old vines already. So this project was kind of well ahead of everybody, but you're starting to see more people are planting Grenache up there. It's kind of like the hip spot really right now in Spain to plant Grenache. So we often think of Spain as kind of cheap and cheerful, everyday wines, but for me, these examples of Grenache, especially at the top end, are some of the most, elegant, fine, interesting, complex wines in the entire shop. And the price points really don't match because people just don't, this area is still so up and coming. It doesn't have the reputation of a Châteauneuf-du-Pape or Côte-Rôtie or a well-known wine region. It's just still kind of climbing.
But the other thing we need to talk about is this wine.
I know. I love this wine. I love recommending this wine because it always puts a smile on people's face. It's such a unique wine. To me, it smells kind of like lime. Yeah. It's got this interesting kind of like floral note, but it's like kind of a more exotic flower.
Yeah, and there's always this like little underlying kind of like roasted almond sort of thing that happens with it too. There's some of the most unique white wines that I have had recently while still being really approachable. So this wine, the first one that we're trying is $24.95, and honestly, like you're getting such an interesting bottle here. Really zesty, really bright, a little like more texture to it.
Yeah, it's such a cool. I mean, we're talking about a $25 wine, and I can come up with 1,000 descriptors for it. It's so nuanced. It's got so much going on. If you like Sauvignon Blanc, this would be a more like textural, interesting style of wine. If you like Chardonnay, there's no oak on this. This is kind of like, it's got this lean, sort of fresh, crisp, and it's kind of hard to describe. I mean, there's really nothing like it.
It is really unique.
Grape varieties in here,
Albio and Macabeo.
There you go, Albio.
Yeah.
Ever had that? Most people have.
Just here.
First time I had it was with these wines. So they've actually got some old vine Albio that we have that's like $29.95. This one again is just $24. But we're gonna have some of the other wines on hand too because we've got 6-7 wines from these guys right now. So these are the ones we're featuring. So this is the Camino de Navarreros are the wines The fruit comes from sort of the road up to the mountains, right? So you've got the fruit that's at the top of the hill, which is going to be the best single vineyard pieces. It's all, like I said, decomposed granite. This is going to come from a few of the vineyards up there, and then we have some single vineyard ones as well, which sell for like 50 to 75. This guy's are just under 35.
Yeah.
And then this is 25, and this has got a little bit of Tempranillo in it, but it's still, for me, like a, Grenache forward. Kind of think of a Spanish Coteron is what I always think with this guy.
Totally. It's got just like a little bit more weight to it than the other ones as you kind of make your way up the progression in the line. That Tempranillo just adds like a little bit more textural component, a little more ripeness to it, but still awesome wine. You definitely get all of those flavors and aromas of Grenache as the primary profile.
Yeah, these come off kind of sandier soils. These are the soils that kind of are on the Camino, which is the road up to these vineyards. So you get the sandiness, gives maybe like a little less precise wines, but you get like some real generosity in these wines.
I always love that these have that little bit of that floral component to them too. They seem like really bright and pretty.
Yeah, they're not like clunky or heavy or kind of, goopy. They're really like textural and fine and kind of elegant. And for me, I don't see other places doing this for $25. I mean, it's just such a unique style of wine. It's such a cool expression of Grenache. I mean, if you like Grenache, if you love Grenache, if you're Grenache curious, you need to try these wines because they are absolutely such a cool expression of this grape variety, which has grown literally all over the world, all over the south of France, all over Spain, all over Australia, California. But this is an expression you really only see, at this price point from this area.
Smells like craisins and rose hips.
It does. It's got a really like bright, sort of fresh, like, the wine's really lively, right? It's not kind of sitting on you all goopy and heavy. It's got a real like, nice kind of like bright, lifted kind of cherry character to it.
And you still pick up a little bit of like tannin and structure from it, even though it pours lighter and fresher in the glass. It's just got so much interest for $24.
Know what I'm drinking this weekend?
Yep.
I was so excited to see these back. We're sold out of both of these. We're sold out of this. We're sold out of the high end. We're sold out of the magnums of this because they're so pretty.
I was going to say, this comes in a magnum.
And it's a really good looking
That's
magnum
what I really want.
Yeah. Should we try it? You got time?
Absolutely.
Why not, eh? We can get into this one.
So as you move up the progression and we move into straight Grenache, and like you were saying, this comes from a little bit more of those sloped mountainside vineyards. And so it just adds even like a little more elegance than what you find in that first bottle too. You used once kind of the descriptor of these being sort of like a cross between that nicer Chateau Neuf and a little bit Burgundy in terms of its just elegance and prettiness. So
yeah, you don't get any until you finish up.
okay.
Sorry.
Brian.
Yeah, I think people who like Chateau Neuf will like this because it's it's sort of a finer style of Grenache. But if you like Burgundy, you're gonna like this too because there is a lot of terroir. There's a sense of place with this. This is a kind of wine that kind of reveals itself slowly. Something like 40 months this wine spends in barrel before they release it. It's crazy. They really give this all kinds of time. It's such an interesting process. They use almost no sulfur. It's all kind of really organic. These are officially biodynamic.
Yeah.
Everything at the top end is all biodynamic. So
It checks all the boxes.
they're trying to do things in a very they're not making a lot of wine. It's a tiny, tiny project. And they're just doing everything as naturally and as minimalistic as possible as far as the winemaking goes. So this is the kind of winemaking techniques you're going to see in wines that are $100, $200 a bottle. These are $33 a bottle. You know why? Because nobody knows what Navarreros is, or maybe I'm the only guy who can say it. I don't know.
I think the most exciting thing with the vineyard too is just that the great grandsons have really only been at it for a handful of years. It hasn't really been that long. So to see that they're still up and coming, they still have so much to learn, so much experimenting to do in their winemaking and styles. These are just going to get better and better as time goes on.
That's an unbelievable wine for the money. The finish just goes on and on and on. You look at the color and you think like, oh, this is going to be just light and it's not going to have much going on, and then you taste it and you're just like, where's all that coming from? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when you taste Volnay, or really high end Burgundy, and you wonder like, where does all this power come from? Where does all this concentration come from?
It's got that little like flinty and granite thing too happening. Like it's so Interesting.
Yeah, a little bit of that like
I love it.
graphite kind of pencil lead thing going on.
Super exciting.
Yeah, we're gonna sit here and drink this all morning. So if you want to join us, come down.
We're here.
We'll be here. We'll be here all weekend. I love sharing this wine. We do have. I think we got like 12 magnums, not many, but this is definitely a great wine to throw in the cellar. It's drinking beautifully now, but you should throw a couple bottles down because this is gonna be a fun one. Quick about the pack.
Totally. Check these out online. If you want to grab both of these bottles and give it a shot, you can also get those in our 6-pack this week.
Nice.
Little Spanish and Portuguese combination for you.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you should be able to talk about Portugal by now
Yeah,
after
I
your
think
last
so.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But we wanted to offer kind of another array of selections. So there's the new Cabernet from Fiuza. This just
Cool.
landed a couple weeks ago. The Canto de Pedro, little Touriga Nacional in there. The Protos Verdejo for another like zesty, fresh Spanish
A
white.
couple of nice days coming up next week. I
There's
saw.
going to be a few.
Yeah.
And then Baltos Mencia for something a little more like fuller bodied and robust. So
Why
I
not?
mean, you're under $125 to grab that 6-pack
For
of
all
wine.
6.
So
There you
kinda
go.
want it.
That's a nice little 6-pack.
And you get to try both these.
Yeah, and you get it delivered to your house for free.
Absolutely.
Can't beat that. Comes in a nice little Market Wines box too. So there you go. Well, hope to see you this weekend. If you like Grenache, you gotta come try these. They're exceptional wines. We're not just saying that. We're gonna stand behind it. Come down.
We're going to stay here
Yeah,
and finish
we're gonna
this.
be here.
Okay, see you soon.